Hello and welcome to the Bucket Lister podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. I am your host Keith Crockford and today I am chatting all things the best of Nepal. And this was before COVID. This is the first trip we've run of the best of Nepal because it kept getting put back because of COVID. And we were due to do our first one in 2019, but it actually took until 2020 and it actually took until 2023 to get it live. And the reason why I wanted to design a best of Nepal trip was because we do so many, I think we've got like 9 different trips to Nepal. And the majority of them, all but this one, involve lots and lots of trekking. And I think Nepal is such an amazing country, but not everybody wants to go and trek for 10, 12, 14, 16 days to go and see it. So we created this trip called the Best of Nepal, which I think took in all of the best bits, and that's the trip we ran. And today I am chatting with Paddy. Hello, Paddy.
Hi.
And Paddy's just come back off that trip. So rather than hearing me talk all about the trip, I thought we'd get it from a customer's perspective and give Paddy the chance to give us her views of what she thought of the Best of Nepal trip. So, Paddy, first of all, why did you book the Best of Nepal trip?
Because I wanted to do something different before I get too old to do it. But also I'm a netballer and I had an operation on my knees, and I booked something to ensure that I keep up with the rehab for my knees. And what better way of doing it than hiking up a mountain? That was my reason.
Yeah, I mean, there is, like I say, there is some hiking in this trip because obviously you can't go to Nepal and not go there. But we kind of kept the trekking to a minimum, I would say.
And that's one of the reasons why I went with this one as opposed to one of the bigger hikes. It's the hiking part wasn't the main reason for the trip. We did some hiking because you can't go to Nepal and not go up the mountains. But it was minimal. So if I didn't follow through with the rehab, I could still go up.
And you booked it as originally you booked it as a solo female traveler.
Yes.
How did you find the process? I mean, as it was in the end, you ended up dragging a few of your friends along on the trip as well. But
Yes.
Obviously that wasn't the plan in the first instance. You were kind of going to go and do this on your own, wasn't it?
Yes, it was very much so. And I think I did send an email into the group, to your team as well, and going, I'm a single female. I have no experience doing this. Is this trip going to be good enough for me or going to be worth it for me? And yeah, the response was yes. Most of the people who travel with us are single travelers. So I felt a little bit, I think as I'm getting older, I'm going to say it like that. As I'm getting older, I would like to travel, but the idea of traveling with a backpack by myself kind of freaked me out at the moment. So the idea that I was going to go with some other people was one of the pulls to doing a group travel, is that I want to do it. My husband, bless his soul, he doesn't like to travel in a very structured form. He likes to do things on his own, and he'd like to go to one place and stay, whereas I want to see lots of things and do lots of things. So our travel plans don't align. Whereas this one, I could do that. I could say I've been to Nepal and traveled around Nepal as opposed to going to Kathmandu and come back. That's not really Nepal.
Yeah. So talk us through the trip then. Talk us through what we actually did from start to finish, if you can remember back a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I think when I first booked in, I think I had 420 odd days on my app telling me I had to count down. So I've been counting down for a long time for the trip. But everything was just so simple. My job is to organize things. And as a mom, you organize things. And one of the one of the highlights of this trip was that I didn't have to do anything. I had to turn up at the airport with my passport, and everything was done, from the checking in to my bags being carried. I carried my bags to the airport and back from Heathrow, and that was it. I don't have to carry my bags anywhere else beside my backpack. So it was very easy. The flights were all arranged. The communication was good. We got details well in advance, so we know what we were doing when we were doing it. We literally just turned up at the airport, and we had a WhatsApp group set up before we got there. And we got to the group and go, "I'm here," and then you put your hand up and wave, and somebody else randomly in the airport would go, "I'm here too," and we'd wave at each other. And that's how we figured out who our group was. And then we ended up in the pub.
Obviously, it can be a bit daunting when you're going on a group trip in terms of who am I traveling with? Like, what are they going to be like? Like, how would you describe the experience of the group that you had, and like put people's minds at ease who are maybe thinking about starting their group travel journey?
I think when I got there, it was obviously a little bit apprehensive, although I had a friend of mine there. But still, you're not going to just be with your friend for the next 2 weeks. You're going to be with a whole group. So it was a little bit daunting to get to that first point, because you don't know how you're going to mix with the rest of the group. But once you got there, we greeted everybody, met everybody. There was a very varied age group. So we had some really young people and we had some like us, which are a little bit older. But I think we all came with the same intention of traveling and having the best time ever. So we gelled quite quickly. We got on really well. The whole trip, you know, I've made really good friends. We're going to meet up again. We still chat on the WhatsApp group. So going into, I think group travel for me really worked. I like to meet new people. And that was one of my main reasons for the journey as well, is to meet new people, make new friends, see new things, be a bit more adventurous. And the group that I've made was really good. Yeah, you're not going to find everybody who has all your interests at heart. So when I wanted to go walking, there were people that I would walk with. When I wanted to go clubbing, there were people I went clubbing with. When I wanted to go have a drink, there were people I went to have a drink with. So in a group, you don't have to do things all together in each other's faces all the time. Different people do different things, and different people have different interests. So you could go off in a smaller group and do something together, or you could go as a big group and do things together. So if you don't get on with anybody, there's always somebody else in the group that you could get on with.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think we had 11 in total on that trip, and you know, sometimes we'd all go out for a meal together. Other times, some people wanted to eat earlier and they could choose what they wanted to do. And it was, I think, with our trips, I never try and make them when I'm leading a trip that, you know, we are going out for a group meal tonight. I think I try and make it as flexible as possible, and that if people want to go out and have a meal, they can do. If they want an early night, they can do. If they want to go out for a drink after the meal, they can do. And I think it's important that people realise that it is your holiday as well, and you can do what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think that definitely came across in the time that we were there. It was just a case of, we're going for dinner at this time. If you're interested, meet us in the lobby. And whoever turned up, we went for a meal. And if you didn't, you went off and you did your own thing. So it wasn't like, because we're in a group, we need to do everything as a group. There were times like I wanted to go to the Scout Hut in Nepal and visit that. So I went off by myself. Well, my friend came with me, but we went off by ourselves and the group did something else. So even though there's an itinerary that the Bucket List Company provides, it's not set in stone that you have to do everything. You do the things you want to do or the things you like to do. And there's a lot of enough free time for you to do your own thing as well.
Just tell people the story about the Scouts, because you're heavily involved in the Scouts in the UK.
Yes.
When you came back, I think it was such a lovely thing that happened to you when you went and did it. So just tell people that story.
So I'm a scout leader. I'm a Cub Scout leader. And I did take my NECA along with me, thinking that when I get there, because I researched it online and I saw the picture of the Nepal Scout sign in Kathmandu. And I thought, right, I'm going to take my NECA, put it on and go there and take a photo of me standing outside it. And then, I could tell my Cubs that I'd been there. And we got there. And this part of the building was very precarious at the side of the road. So I was standing in front of it with my NECA, and my friend was trying not to get knocked over by the millions of bikes that was going past. And she tried to take a photo. And the security guard looked through the door and said, hello, what are you doing here? And we're like, we're just taking a photo. And he asked if we were part of the Scout movement. And I said, yes. And I was from the UK. And literally he took me in. He said, come on in. We'll show you around. He introduced me to another a Nepalese scout leader who then did a tour of the whole site. That was the Nepalese Scout headquarters. Went around, showed me everything, showed me what the scouts in Nepal are doing, what they did during COVID, during the earthquake, how they work, took me to their shop, showed me what their uniforms are, all their badges, explained everything. It was the best experience ever. I didn't actually think that was going to happen. And literally on Wednesday last week, I took the photos, I took all the badges, we swapped NECAs, which is a thing we do in the movement. So he's got my Dursley NECA in Nepal, and I've got his. And on Wednesday, I went to my group and I showed them all the things that I did. I told them everything about the scouts, showed them the NECA, showed them all the badges, and I got a little Nepalese flag for each of them. So they now have a little bit of Nepal as well. So it was really good experience, actually.
Yeah, and I think and again, I think what you said earlier about having free time on trips, we always try and put free time into the trips because, like you say, people want to do different things when they get there. And some people just want to chill out. Other people will heavily research what they can do in the area that's different to the itinerary that we're doing, and then go off and do the things that interest them. And I think we did have quite a bit of free time in Kathmandu to allow people to do that. And, you took full advantage of that, really.
Yes, most definitely. And there were little things that wasn't on the itinerary, but I'd read up about, like the living goddess, for example. And the guide was like, do you want to do anything else? And you're like, oh, well, I read about this. Can we do that? And it was very easy to slot it into the itinerary and do it as well. So you can ask for other things if you research it and it isn't included. You can still do it.
So let's go through the trip then. So we flew from Heathrow. We landed in Kathmandu via Delhi, and then we got taken to the hotel, and we used the same hotel in Kathmandu for all of our trips, whether you're on an Everest base camp trek or an Annapurna trek, or when we start in Kathmandu, we stay at the hotel, which I think is in a really good location. Like, you can quickly get into the main part of Thamel, which is like the main tourist area in Kathmandu. Just describe what we did when we were in Kathmandu, because we were there for a few days before we kind of headed off, didn't we?
Yes, we did. So it started off at a crazy airport where nobody parks in a parking space. That we found really interesting. But yeah, we got to the hotel, which was in the tourist area, but you turn right out of the airport, out of the hotel, and you go to the tourist area, which has everything a tourist would want. But you turn left. We only got braver when we got back to Kathmandu to turn left. And if you turn left, and within a few meters, you were in the midst of local Kathmandu, which was really good. I think if you want to just be a tourist, you can stay on the tourist side in Tamil and just do all the tourist things. But if you want to see the real Nepal, you turn left out of the hotel, basically, which is what we did sometimes as well. When we were there on the first 2 days, we had a local guide who took us to the local tourist sites. So we went to see the oldest Hindu temple. we we saw another Hindu temple within Kathmandu, which I wasn't Hindu enough to go into, which is really odd. But we also did the oldest stupa, which is the Buddhist temple. And then we went to the Patan Darbar Square, which are all really tourist things that when you go to Nepal, you have to see. The architecture was really amazing to see. The buildings are so old, they're so ornate, the carved buildings. It was just amazing to see. Some of it was damaged because of the earthquake, but they're doing such a good job to reinstate all the buildings to their original shapes as well, which was really good to see. So the guided tours were just guided, and you could see the locals basically.
And they're taking such a long time to do it as well, because they're doing it from scratch. They're doing it the way they did it all those years ago. So it's not like in this country where they would just have it back up and running within 2 months. You know, yes. They are literally doing it piece by piece, aren't they?
Most definitely. So there's the one temple we went to when we came back, the Rani, can't remember the name of it, but we went to that temple. And when I came back, I looked up the history of that temple. And basically 2 years ago, that temple was in complete dilapidation. It was ruined in the earthquake. They didn't have the money to rebuild it. But when we got there, it was the year it opened. And so it opened once in a year, that temple. And we were there for that. But they renovated it using all like original structures and original buildings, and tried to use some of the original material as well. So they're trying to restore it, but restore it keeping all the historic features with it as well. So it's really nice to see.
And I think what was lovely when we went on the tour was the little extra bits that the guide put into it, where like he took us into the healing bow shop, for example. He took us into the mandala shop, for example, and we kind of learned more about it rather than just kind of walking past it. You learn all about all these things. And, you know, I know sometimes, you know, when we do tours of other cities, you get taken into a shop and you kind of know the whole, oh, here we go again. The sales pitch is coming. But actually, I found them really informative. Like the healing bowl one was one that really interested me to understand all of that and the purpose of them, and actually the difference between a healing bowl and a singing bowl, because you can't walk through Kathmandu and Thamel without seeing singing bowls. Singing bowls
somewhere, yeah.
But actually, the difference of a healing bowl to a singing bowl, like they're two completely different things, aren't they? And then going and seeing the mandalas and understanding the training of what the artists go through and how long it takes them to get from a student to a pro. I found that super interesting.
I did as well, because we wouldn't have done it otherwise. You know, you'd see it, and I didn't even know there was a difference between a healing bowl and a singing bowl. But also explaining how they make it and when they make it and the tradition behind making the bowls and stuff. You wouldn't get that from just walking by a shop and somebody trying to sell you one, or even just on the street, everybody trying to sell you a singing bowl. But also the mandalas, to be fair, when I first saw it in Tamil, because it's all over, for me, it was just a really interesting, colorful picture. When we went to and had the talk about it, it means so many different things. And, you know, to say that actually this is a student one and this is a Lama one, and to see the difference between the two as well. So having that sort of knowledge from a local guide, so this is where it's originally made, or this is like local people doing it, and this is what the meaning behind it and stuff, was really good. But even when we went to the temples as well, he had a lot of information about the temple. And yes, you can read up about it, but there's no interaction with reading a pamphlet. So it was really nice to have somebody local who knew the history, who had the information, because we asked a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions. I like knowing about cultures and like investigating different things. So when I see it, I'm like, well, why is that? And the most fascinating thing about the Buddhist temple is that nobody goes inside it.
Yeah.
It's this massive thing that takes up so much space in Kathmandu, and nobody goes inside.
Yeah, and we went to the monkey temple as well. We went to Bhaktapur, and we went up and had an afternoon in Bhaktapur. And I love Bhaktapur. I think that square in Bhaktapur is like, if you're going to Kathmandu, and if you're ever in Kathmandu, like take the taxi ride and just go and visit Bhaktapur, because you're in the hustle and bustle of Kathmandu, and then literally a 20-minute taxi ride out of Kathmandu to Bhaktapur. Like, it's on a different level, really, in terms of where you've come from to where you are now.
Yes, and I think if you go, so a friend of mine who visited Nepal, he was there for 3 months or something. He said to me, "You have to go to Bhaktapur, actually," but that's where we saw the Nawari people. They were celebrating the old lady's 70th birthday, and like singing through the street because of it and stuff. It was just something you just don't see. You don't see people dancing in the street because it's somebody's birthday. And just learning about the Nawari people and their cultures. And I mean, I bought the sari because it was the most beautiful traditional sari that I've ever seen. So I spoke to the man in the store that sold their costumes, and he gave me a bit of history about it. And for me, that was really good, that they were so interested in talking about their culture and their beliefs and where they come from and why they've got these colors and everything. So it was really amazing.
And I think that's
the colors all over was just phenomenal. Because it was Diwali as well, obviously. So there was like flowers everywhere and there was rangolis everywhere. So the colors were so vibrant throughout. And
all the lights in Kathmandu as well, like that. The night we went out for our final meal and we drove back, like it was like driving. It was better than driving through London for the Christmas light show at Christmas. I think, like the amount of lights in the streets and everything like that.
Yeah, it was, because I think it's like everybody has a bit of pride in it. The London lights are done by like the government or council or whoever, they put it up, and it's not as personal, whereas I felt like in Nepal everybody like look after their own little space. So the lights were all different, were all personal to them. There were bits obviously that was done a bit bigger, but all the lights and the decorations and it all was very personal. Everybody felt like they had a hand in putting up the decorations, basically.
I mean, I would like to say that I had planned for the trip to be there during Diwali. It was actually just a complete and utter fluke.
I thought you took me there because I was there to celebrate Diwali. I was quite surprised you did that for me.
Yeah, no, unfortunately it was a fluke, but a very good fluke.
It was a very good fluke.
So after a couple of days in Kathmandu, it was time to escape. And then we went to the domestic airport and then we made our way to Pokhara. Obviously, we had to go back to the airport again, but the domestic airport is a little bit less crazy than the international airport, I will say, in Kathmandu.
A lot smaller. Very basic, but it serves its purpose. The road to Pokhara was interesting. The road to Pokhara was very bumpy. It wouldn't pass our standards over here in the UK, should we say?
Not as bad as Chitwan anyway, but it was...
But the journey between Kathmandu and Pokhara wasn't. It was all sort of dealt with for us, wasn't it? So like you hand your passport in, then you get checked in, and the passport comes back with your boarding pass. The local guides, I must admit, the local guides that the Bucket List Company has were just phenomenal through the whole trip. Adish and Kitab were just amazing. We never felt like we were alone at all. They were always there on hand to help with everything. So the trip between Kathmandu and Pokhara was so simple. We didn't worry about our bags. We didn't know. We just would sit here, wait here. Okay, the plane is going. We get up and we go. We get on the plane. Okay, you just go wait there and your bags will turn up. So, yeah, it was very seamless.
Yeah,
maybe not for them, but for us it was.
I think, one thing for people to, time does not really work with airline schedules in Nepal. And I think, you've got to be there in time, but don't be surprised if your flight is delayed, because it seems to be that every domestic flight in Nepal just kind of never takes off on time.
Yeah, but that kind of adds to the travel experience in a way. You just sitting, because we had such a good group, we just sat around and chatted for a bit. But you have to accept that not everything is going to go bang on time all the time. They're going to be errors. They're going to be.
I think we're so used to it in the UK, though, that like everything we expect. If you say we're leaving at 10 o'clock, we're leaving at 10 o'clock. But, in adventure travel around the world, that just doesn't happen and doesn't exist. And we kind of just need to be prepared for that, really.
I think the culture difference is huge. It feels like, we have the schedule, but it's there as it might happen kind of thing. And you have to accept it, I think. And the country is nowhere near on par with like UK standards or levels or anything. So you've got to accept that things are not going to go to the same levels.
How did you...
fair, we didn't have much delays. I think it was just that one flight that was delayed by a couple of hours.
Yeah. But how did you feel when you stepped onto the aeroplane to Pokhara? Like, because it's not your normal kind of aeroplane that people might expect if they're doing a little short hop from London to Edinburgh or Birmingham to Dublin. It's slightly different, isn't it?
Slightly different, slightly smaller, slightly shakier. I don't know what I expected in terms of an internal flight, but it was definitely a smaller plane than I thought. I didn't feel unsafe in it at all. And it did the job, should we say. But it was definitely smaller, was noisier, very, very noisier, very, very noisy. But yeah, we got where we needed to. And I think maybe I was just a bit too excited about the next leg that it wasn't really an issue. I was like, ooh, what's next? Oh, and we were going paragliding next. So I was slightly scared about that, but I was quite excited about that as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the flight from Kathmandu to Pokhara was about 25 minutes, but actually it takes away a kind of 9-hour drive. So like, sometimes it's an expense that you're kind of willing to pay because, like Paddy was saying, the roads aren't brilliant in Nepal compared to our normal standards. So
you get lots of steps, though.
You get lots of steps. It's that bumpy.
My Fitbit was working while I was sitting on the bus.
And so paragliding wasn't on the agenda. It was kind of the week before we were due to head out. And I'd arranged a trip for my father-in-law to Nepal back in 2020. He actually got stuck there during COVID, actually. And while he was in Pokhara, he went and did the paragliding and told me how amazing it was. And I'd never done it. And so I thought this time, well, I've got a free afternoon in Pokhara, so I'm gonna book on and go paragliding. So I kind of got onto the WhatsApp group and put in there and said, look, guys, I just want to let you know I'm going to book paragliding in the afternoon. If anyone wants to join me, I can sort it out for them as well, because it's something that I've always wanted to do. Never done it. And out of the 11 on the trip, 10 of us actually decided that we were going to go paragliding.
Yeah, I didn't tell my husband until about 2 days before I left because he's terrified of heights. The fact that I was going to go up a mountain itself was hard enough to deal with. But the fact that I was going to jump off the mountain, I thought I'd wait a little bit to tell him. But it was just amazing. The views from up there was... I think you should definitely make that a regular feature on your trips.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to add it as a bolt-on. We're not going to make it compulsory, but we'll definitely add it as a bolt-on for anyone that wants to do it. And I mean, it was about a 45-minute drive from Pokhara up to the start.
Even the drive was quite interesting because you were kind of traveling 90 degrees up the mountain at some points, but you got to see local people, local houses, how the farming in the local area. So you got to see a lot in the drive as well. So that was quite interesting. And then, you got up really quite high. And the come down was just brilliant.
The thing that amazed me was just how quick it was from us getting out of the bus to being in the sky.
Yes.
It was literally like we turned up, we were kind of all stood around just having a little chat. And then next minute you were like, over here, you're with me. Like they literally strapped you into a harness and then you were literally gone. It was like, hang on a minute, where's the
training? Where's the practice?
Yeah.
The guy that was talking to me, he was so strict in his instructions to me. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be strapped to this man for the next 45 minutes. And he's so scary to talk to. And literally he said, right, run when I tell you to, walk when I tell you to. I was like, okay. So I thought we were going to do some practice running and walking. And the second time he told me to run, I ran and I was off the mountain. I was like, ah! But
it was such a good experience. And
he was lovely after we got in the air. I think he needed to be strict about the instructions part.
And and the package included photos and videos that the pilot took us of us all. Like we were kind of the 10 of us, like we were all in the air at the same time. I think I was like, I might have been the second to take off, I think, which was quite cool because then I was on the ground then when everybody else was coming into land and I could see their like reactions when they were landing, which was really lovely to see.
Yeah. And everybody had their face of excitement when they got up. I think the best photo I got was of Sam coming off and she was just buzzing from it. Everybody was, but she had, she's got great facial expressions, Sam does. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know if everyone, I don't know if I'd say that Elliot was excited about it. Elliot was probably the one who was looking a little bit more nervous than most, I think.
Yeah, but I think if you ask him whether he enjoyed it or not, he enjoyed it. But yeah, maybe he was a bit.
Yeah, I didn't realize when Elliot signed up for it quite how scared of heights Elliot actually was.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looked at the takeoff point. I remember chuckling to myself because he was stood next to me as I was taking off, and I've never seen someone look that scared.
Oh, really? No, I missed that part because I think I was already in the air at that point.
Yeah, he was properly looking looking nervous at that point. But yeah, he enjoyed it. And then kind of we came back down and we had the afternoon in Pokhara, and we had a little bit of a wander around. We went down to the lake, and again it was kind of in full Diwali swing, really, wasn't it? Everyone was pretty buzzing from it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, some of the photos we took at the lake in Pokhara, I've showed to people, and they're like, "This looks like something that should be like Instagram or you get the Google background screens because it's so beautiful. The boats and the river and the mountains in the background and the lighting at that evening because we went around close to sunset, didn't we?
Yeah.
And the people, I think that was the first time I actually saw like the local people having fun and doing local things that, like everyday things. I think in Kathmandu, there's a lot of business going on. So you see the Nepalese people working all the time. You don't really see them having too much fun, I thought.
Yeah.
But when we went to Pokhara, they were outside. Everybody was enjoying themselves. There was a fun fair there along the river. So a few TikTok videos being recorded. It was the atmosphere on that lakefront was just amazing. Really, really fun, relaxed situation. And we had a great time too. Found a lovely little pub or two.
Well, that seemed to happen quite often on this trip, to be fair. But
yes.
And then the next day, then we got up and took the hour's drive up to Kandy to basically start our trek up to Australian camp, which is about a 2.5-3 hour trek to get to Australian camp, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't as when you think 2.5 hours trek, it sounds like a long time. But when you're doing it with sort of people that you got on with for a few days by now, and you're just meandering up a mountain, the way up is like all stairs. There were a few bits that was there was very rough road as such. So it was just climbing up and down stairs basically. And we didn't have to carry our bags, which made it a lot easier. I think if we had to carry our bags as well, it would have been a lot harder. But I think the 2.5 hours up the mountain, we didn't feel it as much, or I didn't feel it as much. There were times when we were a bit tired because we walked too fast. But it was really good. It was easy meander up the mountain, basically. And then you got to the top and you're like, oh, I'm at the top of the mountain. And then you look in the distance and you're like, actually, you're just on a hilltop. You're not on a mountain at all.
And the thing that I love most of all about on the way up and both on the way down the next day was the entrepreneurial spirit of the children that were there.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah, we had to pay our way through. I'm glad Cindy was there because she paid for all of us to go through. So all the little kids singing and dancing and then blocking the way, so we couldn't go until we
which
gave them a little treat for their services, basically.
Which was either money or sweets, is what they wanted.
Money or sweets, yeah. They were quite happy with sweets too. It didn't have to be money. They were quite happy with sweets. Yeah.
And whilst we were on that section of the trip, so for the next 2 nights, we were staying in what we call a tea house, which is basically a Nepalese mountain lodge in essence. Obviously, we had been in quite nice hotels up to that point, like in Kathmandu, in Pokhara, and then we get to a tea house. Do you want to just talk people through like what a tea house is and what your experience of a tea house was like?
So to be fair, when I read up about staying in a tea house on the way up a mountain and the information we got, it was much better than I thought. So I expected a bit more rudimentary accommodation than we did. It was clean. It was our own space. We had a bathroom within our room. We didn't get cold. The beds were clean. It was much better than I expected. It wasn't like the hotels in Kathmandu. It was definitely a downgrade. But we had a bed to sleep on and it was warm. We didn't have a hot shower. Some people did. Some people were lucky enough to have a hot shower. But I think for where it is, it was better than I expected.
I think what made that so lovely is when we walked up to Australian camp, it was actually quite a cloudy day when we arrived in Australian camp. And we kind of all went and had dinner, and then people took themselves off to bed. And then in the morning, we woke up to the most bluest sky possible, completely clear. And then the view just appeared. And for me, I think that really did make that part of the trip, because people enjoyed the trek up to Australian camp. Yeah. They got there and they're like, this is nice. But then the next day, it kind of gave them that bit more. That was just the amazing view. Then you could see Annapurna, you can see Fishtail, like the mountain range just looked absolutely amazing.
It kind of just appeared, didn't it, the next day? And I think it was if you were one of those people who had like the really old cameras and you got to the mountain after your hike and you saw the mountains on the day we arrived, and you would have taken loads of photos because it was stunning and amazing when we arrived. But then when you woke up the next day and you saw the actual mountains without the clouds, you would have thought, oh, I wasted all that film yesterday because these are the mountains you want to see. It was... I think and because we all got up really early that morning to see the sunrise as well, didn't we? So we saw the whole mountain range with the sun coming up, and the colors that morning was just amazing to see. So we didn't mind standing around in our pajamas taking photos at 5 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, it does makes you think about your existence a little bit, and just how small and minuscule you are.
Yeah.
And how small and minuscule your troubles can be, or what your perceived troubles could be when you look around you and there's this awe-inspiring mountains just sitting there. Really nice.
And then we kind of had breakfast and then took the trek down to Dampus then, which is like a 2-hour back down the steps, a different route down, but you're heading downhill at that point. And then we arrived at Dampus in just before lunch, again in another tea house. And then I think I really enjoyed that afternoon's walk that we did around the village.
Yes. Yeah, I think so that village that night was actually one of my highlights of the trip, because it was very much about the local people, their hospitality. I mean, the tea house itself was really nice. The food was really good. In fact, the food throughout the journey was really good. I really enjoyed the food. But that tea house, it was about the local people, the local culture. They came around and did a show for us, and then we got involved. I learned how to do the oops ups round and round. I didn't even know that one. When we had to show, it was quite funny when they said, "Oh, this is our cultural dances. What do you guys do in the UK?" And then we got up and did,
oops upside your head.
Yeah, I was like, but yeah, I think interacting with the local people, the local culture there, their dancing, they taught us their dances. We kind of taught them our dances, and then we danced around a fire, and we had the local wine. Was it Roxy?
Roxy, yeah.
Oh, that was potent. That was very potent.
I mean, we kind of had a little bit of a whip round for the porters who were carrying the bags for us, didn't we? And got them some beers and some Roxy for the evening, and they came and joined us. And like, we just had it was just that impromptu night that was just everyone, like, we were all laughing. It was just so funny. Like, everyone was dancing.
But that's the kind of experience I went on this trip for, where you are doing something completely out of your norm. You with people that are so different, but yet so similar to you. They all wanted to have fun. They all wanted to enjoy the evening. It was lovely weather. It was really lovely weather the entire trip, actually. But it was a really nice evening, and we just had a lot of fun, regardless of where our backgrounds are and what we...
Those are the best nights, though, aren't they? When they're not planned. Like, if it had been and I always think this, if you're on a trip and you get taken to a cultural evening, that's pre-planned. It's just kind of, you're just going through the motions. Like, you're there it's a tourist trap almost sometimes to get you in and pay for it and whatever. But this was just like, they came up to us. Our local guides came up and said, "Oh, the villagers have just come up and asked if they can come and perform tonight." And we were like, yeah, that's fine. That'd be lovely. But it wasn't, and they brought up their big speaker, and they brought their
It was quite funny because they just kept bringing things in, didn't they? And we're like, well, how loud is this going to be? Like, in the middle of nowhere, and they just kept bringing the boom boxes in, and you're like, okay, it's going to be quite loud. But the music was really nice.
And then the following day, there were a few sore heads. And then we continued the trek down to Paddy, where the transport was there then to whisk us off. I say whisk us off, but we were heading down to Chitwan then, which is about 6 hours drive from. Oh, well, we had to go back to Pokhara first because someone had left their chargers in the hotel, but and then we headed off down to Chitwan.
Yeah, it was. And I think we saw a different part of the country then as well. The guide said there's 3 parts to Nepal. It's like the mountains, the cities, and the flatlands or something. Mm. And this was our scenery on the way to Chitwan was completely different to the one we had going up to Pokhara and the one we had in Kathmandu. So it was a new experience altogether to do that. Also, Diwali was in full swing. So there was, the houses were lit really cool. And the village tour there was really nice, really, really down to earth sort of. And to see people living in completely different circumstances to us, or what we would think as safe or clean or hygienic or whatever. But, it was a complete different
because we went because like our accommodation down there. I think that was one of my highlights of the trip.
That was very good.
Was seeing everyone's reaction when we went into the lodge. I think like people didn't really know what to expect. And
but like I'm South African background, so you know we have lodges like that, very much in the middle of nowhere. But I didn't expect it to be of the standard that it was. It was very high quality, very high standards. The accommodation was really amazing there, but also the beds were very comfortable. So we had the nice hot showers, and you know the food was amazing. Like breakfast was good, the dinner was good. It changed all the time as well, so it wasn't the same things all the time. And the service that they gave us as well was really, really good. Unexpected. Was really good.
And that lovely bar area, sat down outside in the bar area, is just just finish your evening off there was really nice as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. Very nice, calming, relaxing evenings, should we say. It was a perfect spot to do it.
Explain what we did in Chitwan then. Explain what Chitwan's all about.
Chitwan, it's within a game reserve. So we did go out on a game drive to see some animals. We saw a bit. The highlight for me there was the elephants. I didn't ever expect to be that close to an elephant. But yeah, we spent some time with a couple of elephants, which was great. We saw other animals. We didn't see the tiger. There was a few mythical tigers here, there, and everywhere that people spoke about, but we didn't actually see one. The drive was amazing in terms of we saw the forest. It was just a nice, relaxing day. We got driven around. We saw
the rhino at the end, and we had that close encounter with the rhino at the end. That was pretty cool.
Close encounter with the rhino. Yes, the rhino was very good. We had to chase him around a bit to find him, get a good picture of him. But that was really cool. The boats were interesting. We're so close to the water, the crocodile-infested water. That was scary. It's like, don't move. We're going to fall into the water and be eaten by piranhas. I don't think there's piranhas there, but I was very scared.
There was crocodiles then.
There was crocodiles, yes. But I think it was really nice that we did it early in the morning when the mist was still on the water. It was very mythical to be there. But the actual game drive was really good. We did the village tour where we had quite a long circular walk around the village. Learning about the local cultures and how they're affected by the seasons and how they have to rebuild their houses every year because it gets washed away, and just seeing people live with so little but having really fulfilled lives. They were all just happy. They were all
I always think that with the children, like they're smiling, they're running around, like they're having the best time, and it makes me question my children in the UK, like, and their happiness in terms of they have to have material things seems to be happy, whereas they have very little material things but are happy all the time.
Yeah, I came back and I said to my children, I was like, this year for Christmas, we're going to just do random hikes through the local woods. That's going to be our gift to each other. And we're going to find things on the way and we're going to eat as we walk along. And they're like, as a Christmas present. I was like, yep. Like, no, we don't want that.
Yeah. I think we need to take the children with us as well next time and show them
no,
as well.
Keith, this is not a trip for children. This is a trip where the parents run away from their children.
So we finished in Chitwan and then we jumped back on another flight to Kathmandu, another 20-minute flight. And then we just had some free time in Kathmandu then, didn't we?
Yes. Oh, we did have that cultural evening in Chitwan before we left as well. That was quite cool.
That was cool.
Local groups, the local people came and did a little cultural show for us in the evening, just like dancing and singing. And I think because it was Diwali as well, they were all dressed up, so it was quite cool. But then we went to Kathmandu, and I think we're a bit more more relaxed, street savvy. Yeah, so we did turn left out of the hotel then. Because we thought we could handle it. We could handle the motorbikes. the excessive motorbikes, the excessive
and I
traffic.
think it was kind of lovely what happened as well on the trip, because and this only really happened, I think, because you were on the trip. So I thank you for that. But obviously, I always try and plan a final evening dinner out, and I've got a nice little restaurant in a hotel that I kind of like to take the groups to for the final night, because I think it's just got the most perfect setting. But just want to talk through what the girls decided they were going to do for it.
Yeah. So because it was the final night, we were going to dress up anyway. So a couple of the girls said to me, like, "Oh, I think we would really like to wear some Indian clothing, some saris." So, and one of the ladies said, "I'm not sure if I look good in the sari." So I was like, "Don't worry, come try it out in my room." So we tried out one, and she's like, "Yeah, okay, we could do this." So we spent the day sari shopping. That was an experience. I've never actually seen so many saris in one place before. But yeah, we went sari shopping. They got to choose the sari they wanted, the color they wanted. The people were really helpful with them. And then we went off to this little tailor in the back streets of Kathmandu, who custom made them their blouses that they were going to wear that evening. And yeah, within 3 hours, we had saris custom made to measure blouses, and we got dressed for this really, really lovely evening in a fancy hotel. That hotel was brilliant.
Yeah, so the hotel was called Dwarka, and the guy founded it, and originally it only had 6 rooms. It's a lot bigger than that now. But his whole point was he was seeing that the people of Nepal were destroying their culture, and he was basically trying to rescue everything. So, you know, the whole hotel is pretty much built with artifacts that he's then rescued that were basically going to be destroyed. So there's a lot of old wood carvings in there, and the courtyard where we ate outside in this little lovely courtyard, and like it just makes you think that you're in a temple or you're in Durbar Square or you could be anywhere, but it's like peace and quiet. It's tranquil. It's just such a lovely setting for a dinner, isn't it?
Yeah, literally the waiter said. So we asked him about what's outside this little haven that they've created, and he said, "No, outside is not as peaceful as inside." And literally, he said, "There's cars, there's the river on one side, there's this on the other side. It's not as peaceful, but inside here, we cancel everything." And it was very peaceful. It was very traditional as well. The carvings and the way they set it up in the courtyard made it look very traditional, but you could see that it was high end. They maintained it to be very high end, but it was really good with like the fruit trees and the lighting because of Diwali. They might have the lighting there all the time, I'm not sure, but there was fresh flowers everywhere, garlands all over the buildings. It was a whole new experience, a very different part of
completely
Kathmandu.
different to some of the other things we had seen as well, wasn't it? You know, compare that to the tea house.
I think the tea house goes about 98 steps below, should we say?
What would you say then, Paddy, were your 3 highlights of the best of Nepal trip?
The skydiving, for sure. The paragliding, because I never actually thought I would do that, not in my lifetime. So that one. The people that were on the trip with me, plus the local people. I'm very interested in different cultures and different experience, just meeting new people. I like that, and that was one of the things that I took pictures of lots of people in Nepal. I like faces, young or old. I like talking to people. I like finding out their story. So that was really good for me, and also making the new friends. So that's part of the people thing, and I liked going to like the unplanned events, like our night that we partied. The nightclub in Kathmandu. I haven't partied till 3 a.m. in the morning in a long time, Keith. So that was interesting. Our club that we went to a few times to enjoy the music.
Yeah.
That was very good. I had a few firsts there too. So yeah, I think the unplanned social events was really good. The people and the skydiving. Meeting an elephant would be up there too. Yeah.
Perfect. What would you say to anyone who's listening to this and thinking that Best in Nepal trip sounds all right? What would you say to them?
What was that? One of your posts the other day, if you're thinking about it, book it.
Just effing book it.
I'm trying to be
a good Hindu.
I'm trying to be a good Hindu. But yeah, I think as a solo traveler, I had a lot of doubts about how I was going to enjoy this. But if it's anything to go by, I've already booked my next trip with the Bucket List company because I had so much fun. I know it will be a different set of people, but I know I'll still find my way within that group of people. I like the idea of everything being organized for me. I liked not having to organize anything. So that was good. For people thinking of doing it, if you ever want to say you've been to Nepal, you want to go to lots of places in Nepal. You don't want to go to just Kathmandu and go home. You want to do the best of Nepal and travel around it because each city that we went to had something different to offer. So you have to travel around it. Book it.
Book it. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've already answered. You pretty much already answered my final question that I asked the people, but you didn't actually say what you had booked. So I always ask new people who come onto the podcast, what is left on Paddy's bucket list?
Oh, after this one, my bucket list has gone up a few notches. So I had this when I think I will do the best of trips that the bucket list has to offer because I like the idea of doing different things. Yeah, I liked the bit where I had to climb up a mountain, but that wasn't the reason for me to go to Nepal. So any trip that I book would probably be one of your best of trips. So I had the dilemma of whether I go to the best of Indonesia or the best of Vietnam and Cambodia. I ran a LinkedIn post, please vote. And I also had some input from family and everybody else. So I have booked the best of Vietnam in 2025. And I'm trying very hard not to book anything in 2024 as well. But
don't try too hard. Don't try too hard with that one.
I knew you'd say that too. But Paddy, yeah, I am booked up.
Paddy, thank you ever so much for coming on. I could have done this podcast and talked about it, but I think it's much nicer and much better to give a perspective from someone who's actually been on the trip. So thank you for giving up your time and coming on and recording this podcast for me today. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. And when anybody asks me, how was your trip? It's the most amazing thing I've done. So I'm going to end on that. The most amazing thing I've done.
There we are. What more can we say to that? Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I hope it's inspired you to think about Nepal. Obviously, if you love trekking, then we've got plenty of trekking options in Nepal. But if trekking isn't your thing, then maybe go and check out the Best of Nepal trip that we have been discussing in great detail today. Until next week, I'll be back and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.